afternoon, I'm Bertha.
And I'm Kathy.
Thanks for joining us here at History News. Today we will be interviewing 3 women who lived during the age of hippies and counterculture movement.
The counterculture movement involved a group of mostly white middle-class youths who opposed the war in Vietnam. They are typically known as the free-spirited hippies. They made a new culture opposed to society's norms and believed in peace, love, and harmony.
Theodore Roszak names this counterculture as they often acted against mainstream views. Theodore Roszak once described the counterculture as, it scarcely looks to many as a culture at all, but takes on the alarming appearance of a barbarian intrusion. This movement lasted for only a few years, from 1964 to 1972, but it lived on in infamy. One of these was with the well-known behaviors associated with the counterculture movement as how people often use drugs recreationally to go against social norms.
The counterculture shared beliefs with the New Left movement and the beatniks from the 50s. This has been just a brief overview of the movement, and we'll get more into the interesting aspects in the next segment. Now we'll be talking to Crystal and her friends, who were in their 20s during the short-lived movement. Hi, it's so nice to meet you guys. Can you tell us your names?
I'm Heather.
Hi, I'm Crystal. And I'm Donna. We thought it would be a fun idea to get back into the sphere of the 70s and dress up in some of our old clothes that we had.
Can you tell us a little bit about why you joined the movement?
Wow, that was so long ago. Such loving times. I abandoned society for a life without materialism, technology, or the war. I was at Harvard and my psychology professor Timothy Leary promoted the counterculture movement and often said, "Tune in, turn on, and drop out." This resulted in people leaving their schools, homes, and work to become a part of the movement for a community of peace and love.
How did you all meet?
We were all in the same commune, which is basically us and all of our friends living communally on a piece of property. But the first time we met was when we were driving in the truck and we saw Dawn on the side of the road with a thumb up. Such good times with the truck and the Volkswagen.
Hear me, man. How many seas must the white dove sail?
We lived in Haight-Ashbury, mostly because that's where we could smoke weed legally. Yeah, California was totally groovy. They didn't outlaw hallucinogenic drugs until 1966.
Back to you in the studio, Bertha and Kathy.
Now we have a special video clip for our interviewees.
Get ready to boogie.
1, 2, 3, 4.
That's us in the front row. Oh, groovy! I was pretty much in love with George Harrison, but John Lennon, Ringo Starr, and Paul McCartney all had a special place in my heart. I have all 13 of their total studio albums, from their first one released in 1963 until their last one before they broke up in 1970. My favorites are Abbey Road and Rubber Soul.
Since we were the baby boomers, we were starting to grow up into our teens, as young girls loved the Beatles, but even young boys loved their music as well. Their music was joyous and optimistic. It seemed it was the era's soundtrack.
Did you know at a lot of their concerts, the fans were screaming so loud the Beatles couldn't even hear what they were playing? That was definitely me screaming the loudest.
Did you go to Woodstock? I heard that was the main music event of the movement.
Yeah, over 400,000 people went to Woodstock, the music festival in upstate New York in August 1969. People flocked from all over to see the best artists. I saw Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and the Grateful Dead. It was incredibly crowded and somewhat messy, but captured the vibrant 60s art and music culture.
People gathered and came together as they shared the experience. It was a platform for certain musicians to be able to voice their opinions on the world around them. Woodstock showed the culture of the time with popular clothes and music.
The do-your-own-thing attitude of the hippies led to some controversy. Some Americans' ideas on topics such as sexual behavior and violence became more relaxed.
The changing attitudes of the 1960s and 70s led to a sexual revolution, where the media began openly discussing these previously taboo topics.
In the beginning of this revolution, many people resisted change and thought that Americans were disrespecting social norms.
Eventually, the revolution led to a more casual attitude towards people's appearance, lifestyle, and behavior.
Now we're going to speak with some experts on the topic, Nancy and Janet.
One of the prominent conservative figures to criticize the hippie and counterculture movements was Richard M. Nixon. Nixon and many others believed that campus rebels challenged traditional American values and had the potential to destroy American society.
They also viewed the counterculture as being corrupt and immoral. Some individuals felt that the many teenagers who were expressing their individualities were irrational.
One of the notable ways the teenagers expressed their individualities was through unusual clothing choices. Most of the population did not follow all of the hippies' fashion choices, but at the end of the 60s, long hair, psychedelic patterns, and blue jeans were all quite popular.
Other forms of art were also changing at this time as well. Andy Warhol's iconic Campbell Soup and Marilyn Monroe paintings rose out of the pop art movement in the 1960s.
He intended for his uniformly colorful paintings to criticize society's tendency to conform to others. While conformity defined the 50s, the youths began to change this in the following decade by emphasizing and celebrating their individuality.
At a time during this movement, it unfortunately took a violent turn. Charles Manson, leader of the Manson family, started a cult of about 100 people who followed his unconventional lifestyle and use of drugs. Followers additionally shaved their heads and got face tattoos like Manson himself.
Manson's followers idolized and worshipped him as Jesus. The cult carried out about 35 murders ordered by Manson, starting in 1969. In 1972, he was finally sent to prison for life, and in 2017, he died.
Now we will play a clip from a Charles Manson interview.
Today, correspondent Heidi Schulman went to talk with Manson to find out, after all these years, is there any remorse? Is he sorry? Does he feel guilty? Well,
it's clear that you were guilty of murder, and yet he says in all his conversations with you, he never heard you express remorse. Have you never felt it?
Remorse for what? You people have done everything in the world to me. Doesn't that give me equal right? I can do anything I want to you people at any time I want to, because that's what you've done to me. If you spit in my face and smack me in the mouth and throw me in solitary confinement for nothing, what do you think's going to happen when I get out of here? Guilty. I wouldn't do anything that I felt guilty about.
You don't feel guilty at all?
There's no need to feel guilty. I haven't done anything I'm ashamed of.
Wow, that was a seriously scary video.
Yeah, I agree.
The fall of the counterculture movement can be connected to the rising drug addiction and violence. The most popular drugs at that time were marijuana, LSD, and even heroin. All of these drugs led to serious health issues in the United States.
A do-your-own-thing philosophy led to people having unstructured lives. They lived their lives based off of what they wanted to do and not based off of the stereotypes or what society deemed as acceptable. On the other hand, many families depended on welfare and food stamps after rejecting society.
Before we say goodnight, we would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors. We are sending a huge thank you to the Mr. England Foundation and the A1 U.S. History Corporation.
That was wrong.
At a time during this movement, it unfortunately took a violent turn.
Did you say term?
I thought I said Cakey's better than the frosting.
Like, hold it up like this.
I will throw a cupcake at you!
Ready? I'll rip it, okay? I'll be like,
No!